Thanks for joining us for this Swimage demo. What I'm going to demonstrate today is an in-place migration of Windows 7 to Windows 10. What it's going to do is take this machine and migrate all of the data and reinstall all the applications and migrate all of the settings from this machine to the new operating system. It does this as a clean reimage and rebuild, so it's going to eliminate all of the bloatware you may have on the system or any applications that you don't want, but it'll only keep the applications that fall within your rules defined as supported applications within your environment. So it's a really clean way of doing this process. The goal, once it's finished, is the user logs it back in. They're going to have Windows 10. They're going to have all of their applications. They're going to have all their data. They're going to have all their settings. They can continue to work immediately on this device once it's finished. So I'm going to go through this process and kind of explain how it works. And I'm not going to go through a PC-to-PC replacement here, but it works pretty much the same way. You have a new machine sitting next to the old machine, and it'll migrate everything from the old device to the new device. But this one will be an in-place migration. The other thing we're going to do is this is going to be the self-service model, which is give the ability to the users to actually migrate at their own will. So they can kick off this migration process, and it will do the migration and allow them to schedule it and so forth. You can also push this out as a mandatory package or remote execution of the Swimage process that will do it zero touch overnight kind of deployment. So you could schedule it for, say, 2 a.m. and the user comes in the morning and they're completely finished. Okay. All right. So we have on this device some documents. I put in some documents in here. We've got some lovely pictures and music and stuff. All the standard stuff the user might see on their PC. We'll show that all gets migrated. And that gets migrated through a set of rules that we define within Swimage that says here's all the stuff that we want to migrate. And it migrates not just this user's profile, but any profile that you choose that's on this device, it will migrate those as well. Important because you could have a kiosk machine or a shared workstation that multiple shifts may be logging into at periodic time, so it can migrate every profile. The user, to do self-service, they'll log in, they'll kick it off, and it'll still migrate all the profiles, or the user could be completely logged off and it'll still do the migration if you do a zero-touch push to it. Okay. One of the things that's important, and this is something that Swimage does very uniquely, is you've got all the known data, but what about that unknown data, those little files that are tucked around on devices that you may not know about, technicians don't know about it. Certainly you can't build rules to pick up all those idiosyncrasies and files that may be tucked away in all different kinds of places. So what we've done is we do a snapshot, and what it does is we do a full snapshot of the disk and put that into a hidden secured area on the same partition on the same drive, just to make sure that in the event that you have missing data, you can still retrieve that data. So with Swimage, doing these migrations gives you that additional safety net of saying, you know what, I can do migrations and not worry about data loss because I know it's going to pick up everything at some point. So what we did is I created a folder called My Secret Folder, put a password file in here and tucked it away in here with a ZZZ extension, which is a way of the user saying, oh, no one's going to see my little secret password file. I'm going to kind of obscure it. But in a typical migration, this file would obviously be lost because no one knows about it to know to migrate it. We'll show you with Swimage that it can still retrieve this file after the fact. All right. So in order to kick this off, we're going to provision the machine. And provisioning basically means what does this machine need to look like? We're giving it a future state is what we call that. The future state of this machine is which operating system it's going to have, how you're going to name it, which applications are going to get installed, which OU it's going to join. Everything about this machine can be defined in this future state, down to which features to install or uninstall of Windows 10 that you want, how to lay out the start menu, everything about it is in the future state. So what we have is we have a spreadsheet that you can fill out, and you can develop and actually define the future state on the fly if you want to, but I'm going to do it the spreadsheet method because this is a really easy way to do it. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to call it demo-01A. That's the name of the machine, and you can name it whatever you want. If you have auto naming enabled, you can have Swimage actually auto name the machine as well. The role, I'm going to pick a role. This one I'm going to do a Windows in place. Now if you left these three alone, this is really all you need to do to a basic deployment. You're going to get your Windows 10 operating system. It's going to have all your default settings. It's going to have all your enterprise applications in it. It's going to join the right OU and everything like that. Okay, so you don't really have to do much unless you want to. For this particular device, I'm also going to assign a particular template that's going to give it the role of the user. So we're going to have it. We have a departmental template called engineering, and it switches which OU it joins and adds a couple of extra applications to this particular machine. And you can have as many templates as you want layered onto the same machine, spread across your enterprise. So you could have a Germany template which specifies the language. You could have different types of templates for the location or the type of user it is and the role of the user. So you can be very specific how you want to define templates. Very flexible that way. Okay, in addition to the template, I want one specific additional application, and I'm going to throw GIMP on here because this user says I must have GIMP. So I'm going to put him in here as well. And this is basically provisioning the device. Very easy to do. Once you have it defined, you can do thousands of records at a time if you want to. I'm just going to do one. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'll save the import record. So I'll export that out. And then what I'm going to do is go to the Swimage console. The Swimage console is the central console that gives you access to everything about Swimage. And log into this as a Swimage administrator. Go to computers and import computers. And what this is going to do, you're going to pick the computer you want to import from this XML. I'll pick this guy out. And now that I have them in there, I hit next, and it's going to define this record. So here's the machine with its name, serial number, and role that I selected. I'm going to next that, and now it has one record imported. So that's record is now provisioned in Swimage. Basically what that does is allow you to do zero touch and not have the user have to know anything about the machine and how to deploy it. So now I'm back to the machine. I'm going to kick off the migration self-service wise, put a link on their desktop, and kick it off. And this is going to initiate the process. Now in the meantime, while I should start this, I'm going to go ahead and put a clock down here so we can actually time it, see how long this is going to take. So I'll start him going so we can watch it. All right, there we go. Back to this guy. I'm going to say redeploy this machine, and then you can hide these menus if you want to. You can customize them, bypass this menu. This one particularly gives the user the option to do different things. If we had a new PC, he could migrate to a new PC. In this case, I'm just going to do redeploy this PC and hit the begin button. Okay, once you start this process, the very first thing it does is a validation and a scheduler. So here's a scheduler. So it gives you an auto countdown. You got 30 seconds to respond, otherwise it's going to auto continue. If you wanted to say reschedule, I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick a different day. Say I want to do it, March 3rd at let's say at 4 in the morning. You can do that. Do AM and then begin the migration. So what this scheduler allows you to do is the user can then say, well, I want to postpone. I don't want to do it immediately, but I want to do it overnight. So first thing in the morning, he's going to start the migration. So it'll sit there and count down. You can hide that, do work or whatever until this is finished, and then it's going to hide in the background and then migrate. Okay. For this, I'm going to change it back though, because I want it to run immediately. So I'm going to kick it off, and it'll pick up and actually execute. That the time has now passed. All right, so it says we'll begin deployment shortly. So what it's doing in the background is it does a validation process, and the validation process will ensure that the PC is ready for the deployment. And this, things like the drive space and health of the system, any applications that you need to change or are not compatible or whatever, it'll make sure that it handles all those properly. If it finds any issues with it, it can actually remediate those problems as well. That's pretty important because remediation is an important part of fixing issues, and you can customize so that if there's specific things you want to do to remediate a machine's preparation for deployment, you can do that. The goal here is that once it validates and remediates everything, that the migration itself is going to be successful, and you could have it set so that if it fails validation, it doesn't continue with the deployment, knowing that you have an imminent failure if you're going to go down that route. Okay, so once it's done with that, it kicks off the Swimage process. Okay, I'm going to go through real quickly kind of the steps it's going to go through. First thing it does after it's validated everything is it scans the machine and determines what type of encryption you have. If you have an encryption on the machine, it captures all of the encryption components, keys, algorithms, and drivers necessary for the encryption to stay functional, and it'll actually migrate all those encryption components into WinPE and into the new operating system. Okay, here's a dialog box that I'm going to go ahead and continue. Okay, so the beauty of that, you do in-place migrations with encryption. Number one, the techs or the users, whoever doing this, don't need to know anything about the encryption. The Swimage detects and handles it properly, regardless of what type of encryption you have. So if it's BitLocker or McAfee or SecureDoc or any of those, it'll handle those properly. And you can have an intermix of any type of encryption, and Swimage can handle those properly. You don't really have to think about it. Okay. The other part is, as it goes through the process, you'd never have to worry about files ever being exposed in an unencrypted state during a migration, which is super nice for any company that's hyper sensitive to security. Okay, so it boots into WinPE, and then it will do the snapshot. This full drive snapshot is what I talked about with all the files being protected on the drive. And these files get tucked away into a secure spot on the drive and scrubs the rest of the drive. So you're virtually starting with an empty drive. After it does that, then it goes and drops the new image down. So you're going to have a new image. It's a thin image. It could be an image that's patched. Obviously, you want it fully patched. But you can also customize and put whatever other components you want to in this new image. You can add applications or whatever, but it really doesn't need to. It can run basically with a thin image, which is our preference. And then you have the flexibility of adding into your enterprise applications after the fact. That gives you flexibility so you're not constantly updating your image due to application upgrades or things like that. Okay, then once the image comes down, it then injects drivers. The drivers come down dynamically based on the type of hardware you have. So if you have Lenovo's or HP's, it detects that and only injects the necessary drivers to make that model fully functional. Then it customizes your system, adds your machine name and other components necessary to build. It boots into Windows 10 and continues the install of your executable drivers. Those are drivers that require executables to function, like keyboard hotkeys and video layouts and programs and stuff like that. You can install all those based on, again, the specific hardware type that you're running. You can install different applications at that point. Then it goes through and does the customization of all your Windows components, features, apps. It can remove apps and remove features, add apps, add features. It gives you a level of consistency. So no matter what image you have, you're going to have a consistent result at the end. If you don't like Cortana, you remove Cortana. Cortana never shows up because Swimage is always going to be removing that regardless of what your image may look like. So you could have all these components in your image, but it gets removed as part of the deployment process based on the templates you've assigned to this machine. Okay, once it does that, then it goes through your application installs. It installs all the applications in the correct sequence with dependencies needed. If you're going to, if it needs to install the dependencies, it's going to do all those. And it addresses all the patches at that point as well, and updates the machine if there are any additional patches. And once it got all the applications installed, all the settings applied, that's when it is going to join the domain. So it joins the domain, and if you're remote, it will auto join through or auto connect through an auto VPN process. So it creates a tunnel into your network. It's going to use your existing VPN tunnel, but it's going to put a wrap around it to make sure that it stops at the right point and connects as necessary to get you connected to your network. Once it's connected, it joins the domain, restores all your data, all your settings, and runs a lockdown process on the system and a cleanup. And the cleanup process is where it finishes up and you're now Windows 10 fully functional. So that's the entire process end to end. While it's doing that, let me go back into the Swimage console, and we're going to go through a little bit more in the console, show you more of what a future state might look like. So here we have the computers. Go to the computers record, and if I wanted to find this computer, here's the Swimage Demo 01A that I defined. And I want to actually view its future state. So this is the future state we provisioned on this box, and it's going to show you what is going to be deployed on this machine. So it tells you which domain it's going to log into, which operating system is going to get dropped down. It's going to have how it's going to get migrated. You're going to do WinPE capture, and you're going to do the snapshot, which applications are going to get installed based on the templates and auto detection that it's doing on this machine. So here's our GIMP that we assigned in that spreadsheet. It applies some registry punches. You can customize any of the registries that you want to, and you can really customize the heck out of the machine based on templates that get assigned. You can assign custom scripts as well. We don't have any in here, but you can add as many custom scripts. If you want PowerShell scripts to do certain things, you can do that. And you can add the specific Windows features, and you can control the disk layout as well. So that's basically the future state of the machine as it's going through. And then to show you a little bit more of the configuration of that, to look more detailed in the templates and roles, the template has a layered approach. So let's go through and look at the template for the engineering group that I assigned to this machine and what makes up this specific template. And in here we have, I think we just added a couple of applications. We have Chrome and Firefox as part of this group as well. Okay, so that's what's also going to be added to this particular machine. So that's the layout of the templates. Okay, we're going to let this go into and continue. It's in the process. It's just going to drop the WIM, and we're 9 minutes into it already. And it's already ready to drop the image down. We probably have a few more minutes left, and we'll watch the timer and skip some time so you don't have to sit and wait for it. Okay, it looks here that we're finished with the migration. It's Windows 10 now. Let's go ahead and stop the timer. We're under 30 minutes, which is a nice fast deployment. And let's go ahead and log in. Log back in as the user. There we go. So the goal here is, again, like I was saying, the user logs in, they continue their work, and they have Office, they have all their browsers they have, including all of their shortcuts and settings and favorites and everything like that is all built into the process to be migrated, including all your applications. Looks to me like GIMP is installed, so that's cool for this user. Now let's take a look at that really important file that he had on this machine. So let's go to the C drive. Notice it's not there anymore. And the problem there is the user's going to complain you missed some data. Well, not really, because we can recover that. Let's go to the snapshot. I'll show you where the snapshot's located. So we tuck it away, and it's usually protected by opening it up for this demo. And so you could give rights if you want to on the fly for the user, or you can have the help desk do this. But the snapshot has everything that was specifically for this user. And here's my secret folder is here, and here's my password file. So you simply drag and drop it out of there, and you've now restored the user's important file, and the user is very, very happy. Okay, so now let's say something went wrong. The power went off, or during the migration, or you just, hey, I don't like Windows 10, it doesn't function the way I want it to, and he happens to be an executive, and you want to put him back temporarily, permanently, whatever. It's a business decision. So in that case, let's go ahead and roll them back. So we'll go ahead and start the rollback process. And this rollback process, what it does is it analyzes a snapshot and says, okay, this PC has a snapshot already on this disk. Can we roll back to it? It checks the health of the snapshot and allows you to roll back if necessary. So now we have the snapshot. It's available. You can roll back. This gives you the date of the last login to that snapshot, which you notice was right prior to the migration. I'll agree and roll back. Now before I hit the rollback button, let's go ahead and reset the timer, and let's time this thing, see how long it actually takes to roll back. Okay, start it going and hit rollback. Again, if this machine happened to have encryption on it, it would handle that encryption appropriately. and roll the system back. This process takes, right around 2 to 3 minutes to do, end to end, to get the rollback completed. And a couple of things about the rollback that it's used very commonly for is not for actually rolling the system back, although it's very nice for that. It is primarily used for the data recovery that I talked about from that snapshot. It'll do that. The rollback is, however, very, very nice for a safety net. The safety net being I want to migrate relatively aggressively, and what it gives you is you could schedule for hundreds, if not sometimes in large organizations, thousands per day, a couple thousand over the weekend, for instance, and not worry about missing data or machines that partially migrated, any of that kind of stuff, because you know that the worst case scenario you can always roll it back. Now we're back to Windows 7, and there we are in 1 minute and 40 seconds, and we've got our login screen already for Windows. So I'll go ahead and log back into this device, and you will see once it's logged in, that's exactly where we left off. So you can roll it back and do whatever you needed in Windows 7. You can start the migration again at that point. So that's pretty much the Swimage process. Pretty straightforward. It's easy to use, easy to set up, definitely easy to migrate. And whether or not you're doing an in-place like this or you have PCs you need to replace, pretty much the same process. Really nice for remote users if you have folks that are in the field that are hard to reach. You get the bits to them. You can ship out a Swimage kit, which includes all of the bits on a thumb drive that they can plug in and do that migration. You can push out a cached version of it as well, so it's sitting on the drive ready for any type of migration now or in the future. That cache can retain there as long as you need to, and you can update that cache so that in the future, if there's a problem with a machine, rather than having to ship machines back and forth to try to get problem solved, you just have the user self-deploy and fix their own issues. Saves companies countless amounts of money, time, aggravation, especially for the end user, to get the PC back operational again. Thank you very much for attending the demo. Hope you enjoyed it. If you would like more information, please visit our website, www.swimage.com, or you can send an email to info@swimage.com, and we will make sure we respond and take care of you. Answer any of your questions.